Hello YouTubers, Joe Kersey here on Friday, October 10th, about 3:30 in the afternoon Eastern Daylight Time, and I've decided that I'm going to deal a little bit with Paul's ashtray here on the deck. Now I've got my little additional fodder here in the context of some boxes and things, and for safety purposes I've got a pitcher of water, then I've got the hose here that is connected and not frozen yet, and of course see me through the activity, a little dilute beverage, so we'll see here. Well, we got this thing fired up here a bit, and we've had some rain here the last three days, so it's really damp enough that things are relatively safe. Obviously, I wouldn't do it otherwise. And I cleared off all the leaves and stuff from around the place, and so I have a little fire now. Whereas, my son used to call, fire engines fire engines, so we're having a little fire now. It's kind of calming here to sit here and watch this fire, or fireina. Kind of reminds me of being at home when we'd have a fire in the fireplace or the fireina place. And we'd sit down front of it, and sometimes we'd roast hot dogs in it, and we'd play board games in front of it, and it kept us warm. It helped warm the house too, because by the time we lit one of these things, generally the furnace was dying down a little bit, and so it was always useful to have a little extra heat downstairs. And it went upstairs. I mean, so it tended to keep us a little warm in the in the colder months of the year. Interestingly enough, this isn't smelling all that bad. Normally when I've burned this big pile of filter cigarette butts, I'll tell you, it really stinks. But that doesn't seem to be the case today. Although I admit the winds, well, the wind, if anything, is coming slightly from the west and the south, but right now it's going straight up. Although if you go out front, it's anything but calm. I'm not a health Nazi, as you might have gathered, but I didn't like to be around cigarette smoke, but on the other hand, the idea of telling somebody they couldn't smoke was just anathema to me. I mean, I think it's a on one hand it's a courtesy issue, and on the other hand it's a human liberty issue, and well, in any case, I got tired of looking at this stuff, so I thought I'd burn it. Notice that at no time did I say this was a public health issue. That's the same way. That's in the same sense that firearms are not a public health issue. So all the CDC people that want to tell everybody else how to live can just go away on that one. Thank you. Now earlier today, I had uploaded part 5 of October autobiographies, and I attempted to show this picture with a tremendous amount of reflection, but here it is a little bit better. And you know, from left to right, in the front row is me and a woman who was from the North Columbus area, whose dad was an osteopath, and I don't remember anything about the young woman on the left. Then in the back row is my very best friend in college, Tim Cardina, and I explained how I met him in the other video, and then his friend Keith Byers, and then our lab instructor Jeff Press. So I took my camera into the lab on the very last day of lab there in fall quarter of 1971, so this was about taken probably around December 10th, December 12th of 1971. Okay. Well, as this thing waxes low here, I thought I'd clarify just a couple things to part 5 of the October autobiography. I talked about this instructor I had, Helen Wineland, and I had, as I said, I'd had her in spring of 1970, and we'd remained good friends, or I had certainly socialized with her. And so when my good friend and I from Lebanon went over to England for a month, and then we went over onto the Europe proper for a month after that, and in the summer of 1971, because as I said, in summer of 70 I worked, and and so did he. His family were builders and carpenters and architects and construction, and so he worked for them, and or with them actually. And Helen was going over to do research for her PhD dissertation at the British Museum, and got to keep track of this thing, don't we? Huh? And she said, well, she'd rented a place in London, and was, that we'd be welcome to stay with her when we were in London. Well, that's great. That's a tremendous offer. And we indeed did do that. And we'd bought bicycles. We were riding around London on bicycles, and it turned out also there were 2 other individuals staying in her place that I don't know whether they were in the upstairs flat or just part of the whole arrangement, or I don't know. Anyway, there were 2 women, which greatly interested my friend. It didn't interest me, but we all sort of had the same oddball sense of humor. There was a song out there called, it was by a group called the Fugs, F-U-G-S, the Fugs. And it was called Do You Wear Your Jock a Lot? For some reason, one of them had brought it had to have been a cassette tape. It wasn't a record. Had to be one of the more early cassette tapes too, I guess, maybe. And they just played this thing over and over and over again, you know, and the refrain was, you know, do you wear your chocolate, chocolate? Down in the locker room, just we boys, da 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 da, all them toys or noise or something. And so yeah, a lot of fun. It was in Camden Town, toward the north edge of, you know, the north of the central city, and in the morning you'd walk up to Hampstead Heath, which is, you know, it's on a hill, and I was intrigued by the fact that the trash guy came by in the morning, and he did it. It was a horse-drawn cart. The guy had a you know, the trash was collected by a guy with a horse-drawn cart. Astonishing. It was. Now, of course, I'm sure that's not the case today, but that was the case in 1971. So that was a good base of operations, and she actually had a number of academic friends in London, and she took us along to a couple of evenings in their house, and I remember we drove down. Well, it wasn't the M25 because the M25 hadn't been built yet. And hey, Paul. And I was fascinated by the overhead lights on the highway because they were sodium vapor lights. I'd never seen sodium vapor lights before. And then I mentioned we went over to parties at Jeff and Catherine Williams' place. This was before they moved up to the apartment that they were in, you know, toward the end of their stay in Columbus. This was down in sort of a two-lane valley area, you know, two-lane road west. And, you know, I mean, these were great parties, you know, salami and cheese and beer and music. And my word, to put on one of these dudes today would set you, yeah, it'd set you back a bit, wouldn't it, Paul? Yeah. So.
There goes the bags of town.
And then, like I said, when I got my apartment in medical school in 1972, that's an even numbered year, and that's when got to keep checking this. That's, you know, the University of Michigan plays Ohio State's football team, you know, in Columbus on even numbered years, and I'd gotten, well, let's see, I'd either gotten tickets for my dad and mother, or they had gotten tickets somehow, and they came up to my apartment for lunch, and so I invited Helen and Jeffrey and Catherine over to my apartment for lunch, you know, and this was sort of like my first big do I had in my little 2-room, 3rd floor apartment, and I was all excited and happy, and we had sandwiches and things, and it just went really, really well. And then you know, and the conversation was going really great, and I would have loved to have stayed and listened to the end of it, but you know, the game was starting, and it's the Michigan game, guys. It's the Michigan game. So I said, we got to go. I said, just, you know, basically I said, you know, just pull the door shut when you leave. Stay as long as you like. But my folks and I went over to the Michigan game. I sort of apologized afterwards, but I said, you know, if you had gone to Ohio State, you'd have understood what I did. So what do you think, Paul? How was work?
Fine.
Any tales of woe and lament? Well, that's good. Now you have to all dress up in Ohio State regalia tomorrow?
No, it's not a home game.
Oh, it's an away game. Oh, well.
Not till the 18th.
Oh, well, good. Well, I mean, I don't pay too much attention to that. So you have to go in looking like a goofball then.
Right. Retired old freak.
Any mail today? I've been down there twice.
No.
You know, we may not get any today because, you know, the delivery schedule always gets odd around so-called holidays. You know, Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples Day. Well, I decided to burn your ashtray today. NR, no response.
I was going to clean.
Oh, well, now you don't have to. The miracle of fire. And on that note, then, bye-bye, YouTube.